imagining or imaging where next. So this is just where we're at in terms of sort of computational bioengineering. Now on the left-hand image, you can see a cardiac CT skeleton where we've triggered ventricular fibrillation from an area of scar and looking at electrical wavefront propagation over a cardiac skeleton. On the right-hand imaging, we can also see that this is a cardiac magnetic resonance scan, where we can also perform advanced finite element modeling and electrical simulations to determine electrical properties of the myocardium. Nowadays, it's also possible to simulate and perform functions looking down to the cardiac sarcomere and the actin and myosin filaments. So let me show you a brief glimpse of what we're currently doing at St Thomas's Hospital in terms of advanced imaging. So we're just going to zoom in now to St Thomas's Hospital in London, and I'll show you some of the echocardiographic techniques which Edwin has kindly been mentioning through this session. And I've purposely neglected some of the echocardiographic advances for this particular talk that I'm going to give you now. So where are we in terms of echocardiography? So really, echocardiography has come on leaps and bounds over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. We really do have exemplary echo imaging, and these are all imaging that I'm going to show you over the next slides from our GE95R4 platform. We get exemplary spatial and also temporal resolution with really beautiful color Doppler profiles and also CW profiles. The novel machines also have access to artificial intelligence to also speed up the workflow in your echocardiography laboratories. I've already shown you an example of blood speckle imaging, which is available on the GE platform, and this enables enhanced visualization of blood flow through any cardiac structure. And this shows you in terms of a lot of advantages when compared to conventional color Doppler, because it is at an exceptionally high frame rate and it's done with a completely different modality of imaging, which is plane wave imaging. So blood speckle imaging, just as a brief cap, is it's a visualization technique that overcomes Doppler angle dependency. It also overcomes aliasing, where the velocity display is limited by the pulse repetition frequency. It uses ultra-high frame rates, plane wave imaging, and it's able to track the moving blood cells from one frame to the next. Now, this is some of the latest sort of four-dimensional imaging that we've recently performed for a valve-in-valve case on our GE platform. And you can really see almost cinematic quality, high definition, volume rendered imaging that we're able to perform by four-dimensional imaging techniques. And this type of imaging really makes the job of an interventional cardiologist very easy and enables the transmission of information from the echocardiographer doing the structural TOE to the interventional cardiologist. Now, in this particular case, we also use the CT Echo Fusion, which I've shown you already how to do and how to set up. And we also use these advanced cinematic type of techniques with FlexiLight to be able to actually provide peri-procedural guidance. And this is providing unrivaled imaging that we've never really had available before for our interventional cardiologists. We're also able to use this technology to provide anatomical landmarks and able to convey information that much more easier. Now, it's always nice when a procedure goes well for an imager that you can also look at your procedural outcomes and demonstrate that the procedure has been a success to your interventional cardiologist. And this was a valve-in-valve procedure that was performed by Professor Simon Redwood, and we used our GE Echo machine to support the case and also confirm the procedural success afterwards. Now, in terms of CT advanced processing, I've already spoken about the application of computational fluid dynamics, and this essentially enables us to use the multi-phase ECG cardiac gated data set and incorporate echocardiography, transthoracic echo, using input and output boundary conditions. And from this, we're able to predict and measure the peak and mean gradient within the left ventricular outflow tract following a transcatheter device deployment. And in this particular example, we were correct within 5%. Now, we have been working on this technique over the last couple of years. It's an area of interest of myself. So rather than just portray this as being a black box, there is a lot of hardware that goes in to produce these beautiful imaging. What it requires is supercomputers. We need to perform image processing, image segmentation, geometric modeling, and also advanced physics solvers. We first of all take the CT scan, perform image segmentation. We do surface processing, motion tracking, sensitivity analyses. We do geometric modeling with an STL file of a transcatheter heart valve. We merge this with the LV service. We incorporate boundary conditions from echocardiography using LV size, LV cavity dimensions, flow velocities. We create a tetrahedral mesh of the left ventricle, apply a whole array of different physics solvers, surface mapping techniques. We do morphing, and then this is followed by flow field analysis. Now, this technology, really, I think the sky is the limit. This is just an example of one of our latest videos, which basically shows particulates of red blood cells within the left ventricular cavity following a transcatheter mitral valve deployment. And this was particularly designed to see whether or not we could use this technology to predict subvalvular thrombosis and blood residence time within the left ventricle, and how this relates to pre-procedural left ventricular systolic function and left ventricular cavity dimensions. We can also use advanced computational modeling to model endocardial strain. And this is a technique that we were commissioned to do by IBM to determine whether or not we're able to predict LV functional recovery following resolution of mitral valve regurgitation, either via surgical or transcatheter mitral valve techniques. We have explored the use of finite element modeling with our compatriots FIOPS in Belgium. And really, this is really revolutionizing the way we consider mitral valve annulus calcification, because we're now able to see how calcium will deform following valve deployment, and also to see whether or not there is a likelihood of developing paravalvular regurgitation or device dislodgement following a valve in MAC procedure. I've already shown you that we can use this technology to simulate how valves will perform in a valve-in-valve procedure, and also account for device flaring once it's expanded with balloon inflation. We've also recently explored this technique to see how a lampoon procedure or leaflet laceration will impact upon neo-left ventricular outflow tract obstruction and how blood will flow from the left ventricular cavity through the leaflet laceration. And I've already shown you, this was an example of CT fluorofusion imaging. This is one we actually showed at Professor Maziano's conference in Zurich in 2018 of our first example of CT fluorofusion for a valve in MAC case. And you can see the appearances of what having no fusion would be like for a valve in MAC procedure on the left-hand side, with landmark fusion on the middle image and full volume rendered fusion on the right-hand image. Now, there's a number of new technologies that we're also evaluating at King's Health Partners. This is an example of a virtual CT hologram. This is a three-dimensional TV screen, and you can see myself using my hand to manipulate the CT dataset live for Professor Redwood before he's going to do his procedure. So this is a virtual CT hologram, but we also know that we have availability for real-life holograms as well. So this example was kindly provided from Israel by RealView Technology, and this was a real hologram with the interventional cardiologist in the cath lab using his finger to manipulate the CT dataset, to cut through the dataset and to visualize the anatomy before he was going to do the procedure using a projection device. So virtual reality for TMVR, I've already shown you how we're now incorporating this for our complicated procedures for our interventional cardiologists. So to conclude, I think the future is very bright for structural imaging. I think it enables all of these techniques, better communication, better translation of the data that we're doing before the procedure to the interventional cardiologist. I'm a very strong believer that access to these techniques and technologies is inevitably improving patient outcomes, and it is maximizing the impact of all the hard work we do before the patient actually enters the cardiac cath lab for their procedure. Thank you very much.